Hey, hello and good evening. Welcome to Talk to Nisham. We have our second guest here, Aparijit Sharma, and we have Abhijak. It's a great achievement for us. We managed the second guest. In our last podcast, we talked about reading 52 books each year. It has a science to it. Now, Aparijit Sharma has a problem with that number. So let's hear him out.
Well, I think 52 is a very arbitrary number when you say it has a science to it. So I need to understand the science. Where does that science come from? What are its origins? Given the fact that 52 is a definite number, so you're saying that everyone should be reading one book per week, which amounts to the fact that what is the size of that book, how many pages are there in that book. Then it also depends what is the quality of that book, because for instance, there was this one particular guy called Roland Barthes. So what Roland Barthes used to say that every great piece of classical literature is like a little death. And usually when females have an orgasm, that their orgasm is also called as a little death. So whenever you're reading a great piece of literature, you undergo a small little death in which you close the book for a while. Then you start thinking about whatever you've just read, and you're probably in some part of your brain, your eyes roll back into your socket. So I believe unless you're not having enough of those little deaths in your reading experience, you're not reading the kind of reading that you ought to do, which further extends to the fact that the number 52 just cannot be very, aligned with that thought. You cannot read 52 books with so many little deaths in a year. That is what I'm trying to say.
Okay. Do you have any thoughts about this?
Well, that's a very compelling thought, because the complexity of the content at hand makes a lot of difference. For instance, I still remember reading one of those 50-cent American novels, and I wrote it in a frenzy within just 4 to 5 hours, and it wasn't a thin book. And again, on the other side, when I wrote a really thin piece of classic, something like Catcher in the Rye by J.D. Salinger, or The Metamorphosis by Franz Kafka. It took me, I would say, at least a month and a half to just read that book. And after that, understanding the book was a different story altogether.
Okay, perfect. So you both kind of are on the same page. You are trying to say in less words that you cannot assign a number to something such creative and which is not just plain reading, it's an experience in altogether. You cannot assign a number to this. Am I right in saying so? Okay.
But there's I would like to make a slight addition to that. What I'm also trying to say is that if we think of reading as just an exercise to concentrate for extended hours, an exercise to train your memory, then I would say, okay, a person may as well read 52 books in a year. But if the purpose is just creativity and to relish something, then of course 52, I would think you would read fewer than 10 books in a year.
Okay, so the whole idea is, I understand it's a wonderful experience, okay, and I understand maybe you think it is not possible to have that experience on a daily basis and so many times in a year. It's just not possible. What I'm trying to say is I want you guys, and for that matter anyone who is in this comfortable and luxurious situation, who thinks that reading is a luxury and I enjoy it so much, great, you enjoy it so much. If you enjoy it so much, do it more. Why cannot you have multiple orgasms in the same day? You should do it to a point of it that it should engulf you as a concept. When I say I want people to be readers, and I have clearly mentioned what are the benefits are unparalleled. We are not at all disputing it. I am assigning a number to it because you need to identify things by a goal. That is how you become productive and efficient. I want you to be your best. You can only be your best if you put in more efforts to it. I understand if I only read 6 to 7 pages, yes, I would relish it more. But I want you to develop it as a habit. Once it gets automated in your system, you are going to end up, you are going to eliminate every other distraction which can. Why do people meditate and practice mindfulness? So that they can turn off their thinking brain. Am I right? So that they do not have to think at all. For that time of period, they can just enjoy being present. Books can give you the same feeling. You can get detached from everything around you. It's a meditation practice.
Doesn't that mean that it also means detachment from the idea of reading XYZ number of books in a year?
Yeah, you got me there. Of course, that sounds like a great concept. But what again I would say is efficiency matters. There were few things which he talked about wherein you cannot assign a number because some books are fat, some books are thin, some books are going to take more time. Whenever a corporation comes up with a productivity strategy, they consider all those variables. When I say 52 books, of course I have considered all those variables. I am not asking you to read 52 Dostoevsky non-fiction novels. That's absolutely not possible. You cannot read 52 infinite jest. That is also not possible. But yes, by blending your reading list with a mix and match of concise business books, life hack books, self-help books, in combination with maybe 50% of fiction or maybe 40% of fiction, you need to read all kinds of books. Yes, of course, if you are saying that you would only read literature, you are not going to read 52 Dickens kind of books. That is why nobody wrote 52 books. Nobody great like Dickens or Dostoevsky, they never ran for a number. They published a handful of books, but those were great books. So I understand that. But yeah, that is my point, that once you mix and match a balanced, healthy reading list,
Exactly.
and I encourage that you should do that. You should not confine yourself. Confine yourself to a specific genre. I myself refrain myself from reading non-fiction books for 25 years of my life. I thought it's a complete waste of time because it requires, at some level I would say it requires less level of creativity to craft something like that. But at the same time, you are reading Robin Sharma. I have read Robin Sharma. That is a non-fiction book. He writes non-fiction book with an element of fiction. It requires creativity. Research is imperative. The people who are writing these business books, these non-fiction books, they are spending hours of their life, precious hours of their life, researching for the information and then presenting it to you in a very concise manner. That is a different level of excellence, and that is going to help you a lot. So that is why I would encourage to read both fiction and
I'm not disputing the fact that anybody shouldn't read particular number of books in a particular set of time frame. What I'm disputing is the science that you're employing in order to come to that number.
Of a balanced reading.
When you say balanced reading, first of all, I'm not even disputing that nobody should read all of the books, all of the genres that there is. But it becomes very subjective after a while. What does reading mean to me? Is reading a particular exercise? or is reading an experience? If reading is an experience, then I'm not going to focus upon the fact that this number has to be achieved. I'm not going to focus upon that. But if reading is an exercise because of certain inadequacies that I have within me, given that I get distracted too easily, I do not emphasize much upon the time that I'm spending upon reading, then yeah, sure, I don't mind. You can read 100 books in a year. I don't dispute that. But when I'm already so attached to the entire experience of reading, then for me the numbers, the pages, they don't matter. I have finished Franz Kafka's The Trial within time frame of 7 hours. And I've finished Kurt Vonnegut's Junior book, Slaughterhouse 5 in 2 days. Those are great books. Trial is one of that is the pinnacle of literature that has ever been considered, and it is Kafka. And Kafka is not an easy read. And I finished it in 7 hours. But the point that I'm making is, it is a very subjective thing, that what does reading mean to you? If reading is a pleasurable activity, then you can, if reading is actually in the most unadulterated pleasurable activity in your life, then you can even surpass that number of 52. That is what I believe.
Absolutely. Yeah. Maybe we are seeing it from a wrong point of view. The point is not a dispute between readers, how many books you should read, but it's about
promoting the
non-readers.
Yeah.
Someone who doesn't read, I personally think if I am giving him a good reading list, and if I am assigning a number, maybe I am gearing him up for something, to look up to something. So yeah, maybe that's...
So looking at these 3 different perspectives, and it makes me wonder, what kind of books are we actually reading? So why don't we start with our friend here.
Pitch in some names, some authors, some writers.
Okay, so I would definitely...
Okay, so he is in love with David Foster Wallace, and he needs to be loved. I mean, he has achieved that Zen. What he created is unparalleled.
True.
Absolutely unparalleled. So yeah.
No, but this is the first time that I'm trying to sell David Foster Wallace.
No, you did that, and you do that all the time.
No, but this is the first time I'm doing it in front of camera.
Okay.
I don't know how many people are going to watch it, but this is the first time that I'm doing it in front of camera, and I have tried umpteen ways in trying to make people read Infinite Jest, and most of the attempts have been failed, and I have been unable to find anyone in the country itself who's read David Foster Wallace other than me and this one friend of mine, one of my best friends.
And just to add, he is in social, so so he doesn't meet many people.
But all the people that I've met and whom I've stayed in touch with, they have either heard of him.
That's so disappointing.
So I would definitely suggest or recommend someone.
Why? Just tell me what makes David Foster Wallace so unique and Infinite Jest such a radical piece of text for you.
Because there are certain strands of that book, certain sentences of that book, certain atomicities of that book that get associated, that I identify with. If that book is talking about loneliness, then do we as a human, as a product of this capitalist world, do we suffer from that loneliness in our lives? And if we do suffer from that loneliness, then what is our basic approach towards that loneliness? Is it an approach in which we feel a little cringed, or we feel a little defensive while talking about it, or is it an approach in which we become an infantile version of ourselves, in which we come out and say, look, I am lonely, please love me, please like me? What is our approach towards loneliness? First of all that, because he talks about loneliness in such manner. Then he talks about addiction. So, and in the book itself, the addiction is mostly with drugs, with marijuana, with heroin. But the era in which we find ourselves in right now is this contemporary times. Addictions are radical. You are addicted to your phone. You are addicted to your laptop, to different virtual platforms. So, in order to curb these addictions, what steps do you take? How do you identify whether you are actually addicted to something or not? What is the why of your life? That if you wake up, the first thing that you do in the morning is you check the notifications on your phone. Do you ask yourself, why do you do that? So, in order to define the whys of your life, that is how that book helps. Then, thirdly, the fact that he's written a 1,000-page book in which the content is for 1,000 pages, then there are end notes. Then there are notes in which you have to turn the entire book and move to the end in order to refer what he has written at certain page. And then that particular end note also sometimes spans to 2-3 pages. To do that, to make that reading almost like a physical exercise where you have to turn so much number of pages to go back to the end and then to refer it to that particular point.
Wow.
Is another something that...
That's quite something.
So, I don't know, again, after someone sees this, how many people will... But I wish this podcast does good to what David Foster Wallace achieved in his life.
Absolutely. Now, what David Foster Wallace, the kind of impact he left on him, Charles Bukowski left that kind of impact on him. For me, he's one of the most brilliant writers. Now, when people write, I believe they have different layers of personalities. It's not one person who's writing it. I haven't experienced a piece of writing. And how many books could I have read? I mean, come on, there are millions out there. So, whatever books I have read, I haven't experienced a kind of writing wherein the writer strips himself down naked towards the last fabric of his being, and the tears from it or the blood from it, that fucking flows in the book. Now that's what Charles Bukowski stands for. People write opaque, people write translucent, people write transparent, and this is where shit ends. Nobody goes naked. This guy goes naked each time he writes a book. Every day, this miserable piece of drunkard shit came down after working in a fucking post office. And he wrote 10 pages. There was shit. He came back again tomorrow. He wrote 10 pages. He never gave up. In current and another brilliant part, nobody recognized his genius in his time. Today, everyone is gaga about Charles Bukowski. He wasn't discovered till he was alive.
But he was an outcast.
People. Right, the entire community, the literary community hated him, despised him, because they just resented the fact that someone can write so brazenly, brutally honest.
And they also had the FBI
the
surveillance outside.
So he wrote the notes of a dirty old man, and FBI put him under surveillance. So just imagine an infamous writer and FBI is chasing him because of his writing. This is legendary. I mean, damn. And I just can't say a book because anything he wrote is magnificent. He was a great poet. He was a great writer. He wrote excellent prose. He wrote great short stories. I would really appreciate if you could read any of his poems. How about The Alien? Can you pull that up for me?
Okay. Yeah, that's an excellent choice. Alright, that's my device here. Okay. So The Aliens by Charles Bukowski. You may not believe it, but there are people who go through life with very little friction or distress. They dress well, eat well, sleep well. They are contented with their family life. They have moments of grief, but all in all, they are undisturbed and often feel very good. And when they die, it is an easy death, usually in their sleep. You may not believe it, but such people do exist. But I am not one of them. Oh no, I'm not one of them. I'm not even near to being one of them, but they are here, and I am here.
And damn,
Bukowski, yeah.
this is poetry, man. Okay, so that's Charles Bukowski for you. What about you? I know you have greatly been influenced by Dickens and Dostoevsky, and then who isn't?
Alright, so the last video we talked about the genius of Dostoevsky and Dickens too, and we just touched upon it. So another writer that stirs up some unknown feelings inside my mind and body is Leo Tolstoy. So again, a celebrated, famous Russian writer who wrote this incredibly layered and multifaceted book, The Resurrection. So the main protagonist of the story, Nekhlyudov, and let me tell you something about my likes before I go ahead and explain it to you. So I like to read stories, I like to read the journey of a person who's not perfect. So I hate reading stories where the protagonist is perfect in all the impossibilities. So, improbabilities. So, Nekhlyudov, an imperfect person like all of us, is asked to be a part of a jury where he has to deliver the sentence to a convict. It's a young Russian woman who has been convicted of adultery, and she has already spent years in exile. She's put in a Siberian prison, if I'm not mistaken. And then Nekhlyudov sits in front of that girl with 10 or 12 other men, only to find out that this girl was the same girl whom he had made love in his youth, and this girl was his housemaid. And in a fit of passion, in a moment of lust, he seduces her, and yes, they make love. And after that, he leaves her pregnant, only to flee from the scene. And he goes away. He disappears. The girl tries to contact him, tries to explain her case, but then he escapes from the situation, and he's never to be found in all these years. And now he's in front of the same woman whom he had wronged in the past, to try her, to judge her, and to deliver a sentence that he's incapable of delivering, because he's the convict here, and it's Nekhlyudov who should be tried, not that lady. So that was the story.
It's an interesting plot.
And
that miserable.
Yes, and it made me really curious that what makes a person write such things? Where does the idea come from?
Okay, now here I would like to pitch in something. Tolstoy, he has 13 kids.
He had 13 kids.
13 kids. He's sitting in a house. The house is 13 kids. And I hear excuses from people. I can't read, there is distraction, I can't write, there is so much going on around me. This guy, this legendary writer.
And he was unhappily married for 50 years.
I think he used to carry, you guys might want to verify this, but I strongly believe that I read that he used to carry a noose in his pocket because he was so desperate to end his life. He was just waiting for the right moment to hang himself.
Imagine. And the reason why he had this why he was unhappily married to his wife was before he got married. When he met his bride, he gave her his diary, and he said that I've done a lot of things in the past. I'm a vice-ridden man. I'm a compulsive gambler. I used to gamble. I used to drink. I used to go to brothels and done these things. But I want you to read my diary first, and then we can start afresh and we can get married. The lady starts hating him from the same moment, but still marries him. And that after that, he has 50 years of a failed marriage. And yes,
that should be one more book. I want to author that book.
And Tolstoy finally escapes the situation as well after 50 years. And people end their marriages in 2 days, in 2 weeks, in 2 months, in 2 years. But this guy waited for 50 years to end his marriage when he was 82 years old. So he runs away to a railway station, and the very next day he dies. It was a mysterious death, and his body is found. So that's how.
So I strongly encourage men in particular to sort their lives and be in order and not to maximize their misery and get control of their life. Mm-hmm. But if being miserable is what it takes to write like Dostoevsky and Tolstoy, then guys, please go and be as miserable as possible. You don't need to minimize yourself. I mean, talk about Dostoevsky. Okay. This crazy gambler.
Yeah, that's how we usually start. Observe a moment of silence.
I've read Notes from Underground.
Okay.
So, Dostoevsky, I think Dostoevsky is also, many have drawn inspiration from his writings, tried to be as vulnerable as he tries to be. I don't think the word vulnerable actually attributes to what Dostoevsky is. I think there's something beyond the word vulnerable. Even stripped nakedness doesn't even, does it for Dostoevsky. I think there's some sort of, there's some certain truth to the thought that he puts in this text that people usually try to avoid. For instance, if I am right now having the thought of taking this bottle and throwing it away, that wouldn't be considered somewhat, necessary or something that aligns with this particular milieu or this environment. But for Dostoevsky, when he writes, it becomes so right smack dab in your face that it almost feels like that he actually wants to throw this bottle right now. So that's what Dostoevsky is for me. This raw, mangled honesty, this condition of being a human, what actually a human brain is, human mind is. That is, I think, what Dostoevsky is for me, to try to find a certain kind of articulation in which your words become your thoughts, because that is something very hard to do, because that's what writers mostly try to achieve in their life, is to reflect their thoughts onto their words, and after they read those words they realize that okay, thoughts and the words are way distances apart. But in case of Dostoevsky, I believe there's actually no difference between his thoughts and his words.
Absolutely.
Thoughts and words are coinciding.
Absolutely. With Bukowski, you can still encompass his greatness in words. with Dostoevsky, you can only read his work. No amount of words can tell you what he wrote, why he wrote. It's more than an experience.
It was like that Chinese action movie, The Drunken Master. The more you drink, the more you're in action.
Yeah.
So,
This reminds me of an interesting story. The misery part of all these great writers, he doesn't aspire to be just a writer or an author, he aspires to be a Man Booker Prize winner. Okay, now I'm going to come back to the number 52, okay? So, Man Booker Prize doesn't define a writer.
you don't really give up, do you?
No amount of prizes can define a writer or an author, but he has a goal in his mind. So did the 52 books. Okay, so I win that argument flawlessly. So when I first met him, what he was looking for was misery. His life, I won't say his life was perfect, nobody is, but he wasn't miserable. He never in his life, unfortunately, experienced true misery. He never experienced heartbreak, unfortunately. So he repeatedly, in the past 12 months, he made himself available for unavailable women. You have seen Rockstar. This guy has lived that life for 1 fucking year. He is trying to make himself miserable just for the purpose of writing a legendary book. And I respect him for that. I truly respect him.
I totally oppose this. I don't think I am in any sense or in any way making an attempt to make myself feel miserable.
Yes, you are.
I don't think. I think that's
Totally.
a total twisting and molding of words or my even presence in his life. I don't ascribe to that at all.
That is okay, you won't agree. I mean, come on, it's such a big revelation. He's not going to agree about it. But that is what you have been looking for.
I don't think misery, I mean, if misery per se is what is required to write great work, then I think misery just happens. Misery could be a catalyst, misery could be an inhibitor, but it just happens like things happen in your life. I don't think misery makes you great, nor do I think that misery doesn't make you great. Misery is just one of those fluctuations that you chance upon in your life, the same kind of fluctuations that you would chance upon when you're probably your wife would bear your kid. That is also a fluctuation in life. I don't think there needs to be this certain eulogization of misery as an essential element in your life, that this only can make you great. I mean, I believe that there would be many good great writers who never would have done drugs in their life or would never have had multiple sexual affairs, and I still believe that they would make great writers.
I won't deny that, but at the same time, I think hardships, adversity is what brings the best out in anybody.
Nobody wants that. Does anyone actually?
Hank Moody did.
Hank, I don't. Anyway, you're saying.
But yes, again, a certain element of truth in it that it's not a natural state, but it's an imposed state. But yes, the person goes through it eventually.
I mean, nobody can write in and nobody can be intoxicated 24 hours a day and still produce a masterpiece. You have to get sober to write. You cannot just be hooked up on drugs all the time and then you're writing. That just doesn't work.
I've done that.
I mean, there would.
Wallace, Cobain.
So that's music or that's something else. Writing is.
I consider it this.
I do not, because writing is a lot more science. Because people who've produced great works, they try to bring a structure to certain things, and structure is very important. I mean, you cannot.
Music has a structure.
Yeah, but I'm not a musician, so I cannot contend that. But since I've been writing for the past 1 year and I'm about to get something out, so I know the things that I've gone through in that process of writing, that while writing, the kind of things that you have to keep in order in mind, that this particular sentence needs to be attached to this particular title, this particular word comes here, and you need to question that as well. Why does this word come here and why does this sentence?
Absolutely.
So I think that requires a very clear state of mind.
I guess we should give a disclaimer that we are not asking you guys to get more and more miserable. That's not on us. If you go ahead and do that, don't blame us. So we have Bukowski, Dostoevsky, Infinite Jest, David Foster Wallace, Charles Dickens, Shakespeare. You can't miss him, man. Come on.
Oh, yes.
It's like telling, I love science and I don't know Edison. So you gotta read Shakespeare. And the list goes on and on and on. I would really like to recommend a non-fiction. I'm going to recommend two. He's going to dislike one of them. The first one is 12 Rules of Life. 12 Rules of Life is an excellent book written by an legendary person. Yeah, he's alive and he's legendary. Dr. Jordan Peterson. 12 Rules of Life. A concise text to tell you how to lead your life, how to be successful. Same goes with 5 a.m. Club. It's gonna transform your life. It would put you in order if you are really willing to make that change. That's the first thing. You gotta be willing to make that change. He doesn't enjoy 5 a.m. Club. He's absolutely in love with fiction, and so am I. So that's where we have a disconnect. Would you like to pitch in few other names here?
I have talked about.
I would like to add. You guys should check out The Power of Habit by Charles Duhigg. Charles Duhigg is a New York Times investigative journalist, and he has compiled this magnificent piece. It has research. It talks about habit of individuals, organizations, corporations, societies. What makes his work so brilliant is it's filled with such remarkable stories and instances, everything which is real and documented. I would quickly like to share two. I guess two would do. The first is in Iraq during the war, during the occupation, riots used to happen frequently in a plaza. Mm-hmm. Now the government had spent millions of dollars trying to solve that problem. They sent in more troops. What are you gonna do? You're gonna send in more troops. Nothing seemed to work out. Now this great person sitting in a room called the mayor, and he said, can you just ask the food vendors to ban the food vendors there, so that the food vendors do not go in the plaza. Can you do that for me? The mayor is like, you fucking piece of shit. You know what is at stake here, and all you have to say is eliminate the food vendors. Please, I'm making a request. Please do that. Mm-hmm. And there were no riots. People were like, what the fuck? How did this happen? He said, I studied videos of those riots, and there was a pattern to it. There was a habit. People used to gather. People used to yell. People used to get tired. People used to eat kebabs. Then people used to riot. I eliminated the kebab thing. People got tired, some left, others thought, okay, some are leaving, they left too, because we are all driven by habits. Now there is this wonderful at that point of time, this was a highly successful aluminium company, and that company, towards its decline, brought in a magnificent CEO. Everyone was hopeful, and the stakeholders, the shareholders, they were all excited for the meeting. The person comes in and says, my first priority is worker safety. There's gonna be 0% work-related accident in my organization. Everyone was shocked. Oh my god, we were thinking. So investors want CEO to say few things. They expect CEOs to say few things in such a manner that they feel comfortable that my money is safe. Everyone knows no one's money is safe, but you gotta give that assurance. This guy did not tackle that. He did not care about that. He said, all I care about is my worker safety. Everything was, they felt insulted. They were like, okay, I guess we took it wrong. But he hit the core. He hit the core of the organization. He knew the moment the focus becomes 0% work hazard, everyone is going to be responsible towards it. What would that entitle to is the machines would get replaced. People would get more efficient because they are not careless. Every supervisor has to report an accident within 24 hours. So there's accountability and hierarchy, which was previously being ignored. It automatically got into place. If somebody is not reporting it, he's going to be held accountable. So people know, okay, now I would need to be responsible, otherwise I would be held accountable. So he, just by finding that piece which held everything together, or maybe just by deciding on a piece which you think holds everything together, something like a cornerstone, he brought in the profit margin. The profit margins went up automatically, and he didn't even talk about profit margin. So, and Charles Duhigg talks about this cornerstone habit. If you develop a cornerstone habit, we have also discussed this in the past, your life can transform magically. That could be anything. It could be just waking up early. It could just be going to gym. It could just be eating healthy. Anything could be your personal cornerstone habit. But you got to find that. So this is an interesting book. I would strongly recommend all of you to try this.
I'm going to try that one next.
It's gonna help you immensely. Are we going to pitch in few more names? I guess we are running short of time. Let's just quickly pitch in few more names and few more authors like this.
So I was reading a rather unconventional book. Again, it's a non-fiction book, and this book is The Journey of the Soul by Dr. Michael Newton. So he is an expert on the subject of life after death, or the journey of the spirit and the different realms of existences. So he was a hypnotherapist, and he examined a lot of subjects, a lot of people of different age groups, and then he hypnotized them, and he took them on the journey of past life regression.
Okay.
And then the dialogues, the back and forth between his subjects, and what kind of questions he asked, spirit guide, and how deceitful this world is. What we really think of this world in the material sense doesn't hold any truth to it. Okay. So the case studies are very, very, very compelling, because at times it shakes your belief and it makes you question that why are we here and what is our purpose here. So
Viktor Frankl wrote a book. I guess it's The Purpose of Life. I would come to that.
Alright.
Okay, a similar book. It's A Man's Journey. Let me check it out. Yeah, you can check.
So yeah, Purpose of Life also reminds me of this Japanese habit of waking up with the purpose of life, which they call it the ikigai. So now somebody has also written a book by the same name, the ikigai, that if you wake up with a purpose, then life isn't interesting.
Man's Search for Meaning. That's an interesting book.
Man's Search for Meaning.
Alright.
So interestingly, if there's a Japanese manner of thinking in which they wake up with a purpose of life, which is actually ikigai. So there's also another thought in the Japanese culture. The thought goes by the name called mono no aware. So mono no aware means the ephemerality of things, the temporariness of our presence in
existence
in life. That is reflected by this festival they have called Cherry Blossom Festival. So life of cherry blossom is very short. The cherry blossoms easily, there's a cherry blossom festival in Japan, in which the cherry blossom leaves or flowers, those cherry blossom trees shed their leaves very easily. So the mono no aware is actually about this, how short-lived things are in our life, how even this entire notion of being detached from certain feelings that was just a side note.
Great.
That's deep.
We had a great talk. I'm going to attach a reading list. Maybe we would add 50 books. Yeah, 52 books. Okay,
52 books.
So we would recommend you 52 books for 2020, and then you can download that list. Thank you so much. See you guys again.